No coffee tonight, it's a late episode. So today I wanted to walk through my editing workflow from the point of taking the picture and my thought process behind that, all the way through importing, and we'll walk through a little bit of some of my editing techniques and export settings as well. Now, I primarily am a Fuji shooter. I have been for quite a bit, and I shoot mostly on the X-T4. That's currently my primary body right now. Most of the time I shoot RAW. Now that's because I want to preserve as much data as possible in the file. However, those of you who are familiar with Fujifilm know about their really cool JPEG color profiles. I'm going to spend some time deep diving into that in a future video, experimenting with a few of their color profiles, which I think should be really exciting because their JPEG color profiles are something special for sure. But in this particular case, with this shoot, I did shoot RAW, and I went on a city walk a couple of nights ago. Let me walk you through a couple of my favorite photos that I got, and then we'll kind of walk through the import and editing of those photos, and then eventually get to export settings. Now, one of the first things that I do before I import into Lightroom is I make an album of that particular shoot. Even if it's not necessarily like a special occasion or a paid gig, I will typically make an album just to help sort everything and sort all the files so that I can go ahead and just dump those photos right into the album and sort it that way. So after I import the photos into Lightroom, after making an album, I kind of sort through a small handful of photos that I consider workable when it comes to context and composition and idea. So typically when I come back from a shoot, I will end up with only maybe around like 15 to 20% of photos that I consider actually usable. When you shoot, go in with the mindset that you're essentially going to be throwing a lot of these photos away potentially, but the idea is that you're consistently getting stronger with your creative muscle so that over time, the amount of photos that you keep versus the ones that you don't slowly begin to increase. But once you have your photos kind of filed and organized the way that you'd like, it's time to dig into the edit. The first thing I do right off the bat is making sure that the photo is straight. Now, when you're cropping and straightening a photo, there could be a lot of different lines that you want to straighten your photo to. I will typically straighten the photo to the most prominent or most leading lines, most obvious lines. This particular one that I was photographing, I was on the 50 to 140. I really liked it was almost like it looked like gold filigree or something like that around the windows that was really ornate. And that in kind of stark contrast with the really ugly corporate building sitting right behind that. I thought it was a unique composition, so I snapped one. Now, one thing that I used to do that I don't do anymore, and maybe it's, call it efficiency, call it creative laziness, I don't know. But back when I started shooting and I first started grading RAW photos, the first thing I would do is I would grade each individual RAW photo from the beginning. I mean, exposure, contrast, whites, blacks, shadows, everything from scratch. Colors, temperature, everything. I have since learned that not only does that take an enormous amount of time, but also the thing that doesn't help with is providing a consistent look when it comes to temperature throughout a certain shoot. Let's say, for instance, I want this particular street shoot to have a certain type of coolness or warmness to it. Now, this one was during golden hour, and I really liked kind of it's not really bleached feel, but it kind of was bleached golden blue were kind of the primary colors that I was going for. And because I wanted that sort of consistency throughout the photos on the shoot, I will typically choose one preset that matches the temperature or the vibe or the kind of the concept of the shoot. And I will paste that preset on all of the photos that I shot during that time. Then I'll just go ahead and edit each photo individually when it comes to light and color and detail and so on. Once I've tweaked the light and the color, I really like digging into the mask tool. Now, this particular photo, I thought a mask was really applicable because you had kind of the golden hour sunlight coming in from the top right of the frame. I really wanted to bring out more of the shadows in the bottom left of the frame, so I applied a linear mask and just made some additional tweaks to the lighting of that particular mask, so that it didn't apply to the whole photo, but just the highlighted portion of that mask. If you're going for a certain look, but you don't necessarily know yet how to obtain that look, you've got a general idea, then tweak some things to the extreme and then kind of back it off and see where you can find a happy medium. Because for me, a lot of it is subjective trial and error. Not only are you editing a photo to what you think looks good, but it's amazing how much your own perception can change after you spent 15 minutes, 20 minutes editing a single photo. You walk away to get a drink of water and you come back and you had that eye fatigue, and when you come back to see your photo, you're like, what the hell was I thinking? Because it looks god awful. That's one thing that I would highly suggest as you're going through an edit. If you're straining on a particular edit and it's really not coming together, take a step away from your edit and come back to it, because not only will that either reinforce the tweaks that you've made to confirm, yes, this looks good, but it can also give your eyes a break to see things at a new light and be like, wow, that's way oversaturated, or that's way too dark, or I completely blew out the highlights, or whatever the case may be. So make sure you work in a couple minutes of a break in between each edit just to give your eyes a rest. Now, more often than not, when you've given your eyes a bit of a break in between an edit, you'll come back and you'll find yourself fine-tuning things just a bit more. And that's okay, because again, what you don't want to do is you don't want to force something to work if it really doesn't. And that's one other thing to keep in mind as you're working through these pictures that you've narrowed down, that you think are the last handful of workable pictures that you have to deal with. There's pictures even within that handful of pictures that just don't work. And that was the case for a couple of these here. I tried a couple edits. I threw on the same preset that I did on the first one, just because again, I want to start at a consistent point. And it wasn't working. I didn't like the composition. I really like the architecture of that building, but I just knew immediately it wasn't going to work. You really can't attach yourself too much to each photo that you take. You kind of have to just be willing to let go of some. This next one I actually like a lot. I wasn't anticipating getting a photo like this, but there were these birds flying around the city all throughout golden hour, just in flocks. And I was kind of tracing them every now and again. And then when I looked up, we have this place called the City Museum in St. Louis. It's like a big, tall building that's full of trash, or really of just unwanted random stuff. But it's kind of like a massive, 9-story play space for like grown-ups and adults. Had a little bit of a foreground, and I caught the birds just at the right second. So I thought that was kind of a unique photo. Not the best composition. I think it looks a little messy, but I think that adds to the general chaos and kind of misfit of the photo, because it's just a bunch of random stuff on a roof. So again, I layered on the same preset that I did with the last photo. I made some tweaks to the light and the color, and then I went straight to the mask. I love the masking tool. Radial mask or linear mask is really something that can bring out or help focus, direct your viewer's eyes to any portion of the picture that you're really trying to have them concentrate on. All right, so with this next picture, I actually like this one a lot. I liked the way that the sun was hitting this building. I immediately saw kind of the end product, and I saw how I wanted this photo to turn out right when I captured it, which I thought was pretty cool. It really helped with golden hour. The sun just lit up those bricks, and I didn't add a whole lot of saturation. That was pretty much how it looked from the get-go. I obviously lightened up the sky and the blues, but yeah, just kind of a really simple picture. But I like the obviously teal and orange complement each other really well. So this one was a pretty easy one to edit, only because right when I took it, I knew I was already close to a final product. Now, as far as export settings, most of the time I'm posting to social media. Every once in a while, I'll post a picture that I'm really proud of, like on my website, or even print it. Now, in that case, there's going to be slightly different export settings than normal, but the export settings that I'm going off of is assuming that you are essentially saving a JPEG to upload to social media. So if that is the case, if you are primarily uploading these photos to social media, here are a couple suggestions that I would offer. First, obviously you're going to be saving it as a JPEG, and you'd want to customize the dimensions either to 2160 or to 4x5 or largest image quality, whatever the case may be, because at least for Instagram, their real estate is 4x5. For output sharing, traditionally I have done matte only for pictures on my website, but if you are posting to social media, I would suggest that you do the screen output setting with a standard sharpness instead of high. High can have a tendency to over sharpen your images. Now, once you do that, go ahead and save it to either your files or your Photos app to upload to wherever you'd like. All right, so if I can kind of wrap all of this up in a nice, beautiful summary. When you go out for a shoot, have a consistent temperature theme, whether you want the majority of your images to be more cool or warm, because that's going to dictate the way that you edit whenever you're in your editing software. You want those series of photos to have a very similar feeling to them, just so that they don't feel out of place. I would suggest that you organize them in some way, shape, or form that makes sense to you, that you can keep track of them and be able to find them in a very easy fashion. Now, when you're actually diving in to edit your photos, making sure that you are cropping to the focal point, the primary subject of the image, making sure your lines are straight. Again, my suggestion is to start with a consistent preset that you are using across all of the photos during that shoot. That's going to give you a consistent starting point to edit all of your photos off of. After you make tweaks to the light and the color and the effects and everything else of that photo, then consider using masks, either radial or linear, to further kind of help draw the focus and the attention to the subject in your photo, instead of just using vignetting, because masks, I think, are a lot more customizable and can be a lot more powerful in helping bring out the story of your image. Give your eyes a break, because you'd be surprised at what you might come back to find. And then lastly, make sure you adjust the export settings to fit where the photo is going to be living, either digitally or in print, social media, website, or elsewhere. Make sure that you are adjusting the export settings accordingly, just so that you can get the most out of the image that you spent so much time on. All right, well, that is all I have this week. I hope the video was valuable to you. And if it was, feel free and comment down below. I'd love to interact with you as much as possible. And if you are new to the channel, then welcome. And consider liking and subscribing maybe. I don't know. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.